Hey everybody, I'm Jill Redfern and welcome to Third Shift Movement Shop, home of literal technique. In this tutorial, I'm going to give you a couple of ways to practice aligning the ribcage barrel at the vertebrae. We're going to start with flat back, which is an obvious way to see alignment happening at the vertebrae, and then we'll move to upright with flexion and extension at the vertebrae and practicing moving the ribcage barrel from the vertebrae. Before we do that, I want to do a quick review of the bones that we're talking about. The 33 vertebrae are the central support of the body. They have an anatomical curve that we as dancers consider are neutral. When we talk about finding neutral in the vertebrae, we're talking about finding the anatomical curves. The skull, the ribcage barrel, and the pelvic barrel attach directly to the 33 vertebrae. They have a bone-to-bone connection in such a way that their alignment is derived directly from the vertebrae. When we align them, then, we want to correct our alignment at the vertebrae. In this tutorial, we're talking about correcting alignment of the ribcage barrel at the vertebrae, and that specifically is the thoracic vertebrae. Remember, the ribcage barrel is a barrel. It's a 360-degree thing. It has no movable parts. The only way that ribcage barrel is going to move is if you move the vertebrae. So when we talk about aligning the ribcage barrel, we have to be aware of first where the anatomical curve is and when we're flexed or extended in the vertebrae, which will impact our alignment. Okay. I want to start with the obvious. Let's get the skeleton out of the way. I want to start with an obvious example of flat back, and it's obvious because you can easily see and feel when the ribcage barrel is out of alignment. So if we come down like this, here we have flat back. The ribcage barrel is neutral because the vertebrae are neutral. If I do this with the thoracic vertebrae, you can see the ribcage barrel moves. And if I do this, you can see the ribcage barrel moves. You can also feel the things that happen in the vertebrae here when I flex the thoracic vertebrae. And when I extend the thoracic vertebrae, you also see things happening to the vertebrae there. So when we find neutral, you can see the ribcage barrel is neutral, and I haven't disturbed the alignment of the other vertebrae. Okay, like I said, when we get into upright, it gets a little more nuanced and it's more difficult to feel. But we're going to use flexion and extension again as a way into finding that feeling of alignment. So if I'm here, I'm standing in rotated first position. I want to think of the ribcage barrel as a whole thing. It's not, I'm not going to think of it from the center. I'm going to think of it as the whole thing. That whole thing is going to flex when the vertebrae flex, and that whole thing is going to extend when the vertebrae extend. So forward flexion, I'm going to flex forward and the ribcage barrel will come with me as a whole thing. And then I'm going to come back up. And then when I extend to the back, the ribcage barrel as a whole thing comes with me. So let's see what it looks like when that doesn't happen. So if I flex forward and I don't bring the whole rib cage with me on the vertebrae, what happens is it feels to me like I have sunk into the sternum. What I want to do is flex at the vertebrae, the whole thing, not this, but the whole thing. Same thing when we extend to the back. If I open up the rib cage barrel, right, like we call it, like this, I'm not taking the whole rib cage. I've splayed it and I've scrunched up the vertebrae beneath. So if I do this and then extend, see the difference between that and that. So what you want to do is practice aligning, finding the alignment in flat back. And if you need to look in the mirror and see what it looks like when you're aligned and when you're not. When you stand upright, find subtle movement of the vertebrae and feel the ribcage barrel move with you. And as you get used to the movement of the vertebrae moving the ribcage barrel, you can start to increase the amount of flexion and extension. So in your class this week, do a visualization. Visualizations are really effective at helping us change our movement habits. Do a visualization of the thoracic vertebrae and the ribcage barrel. They kind of have this kind of a relationship. Visualize the movement from the vertebrae. Sink in and feel the difference. Splay open and feel the difference in your extension. And go through those visualizations of correct and incorrect movement from the vertebrae and movement of something else. And then when you get into your class combinations, as you can, start to find that alignment at the vertebrae. It'll come more slowly. In my opinion, this is of the three alignments of the skull, the ribcage barrel, and the pelvic barrel. The ribcage barrel is the most difficult to feel at the vertebrae. So don't be frustrated if it takes a while for you to find this. Okay, I'll see you next week.